Mock draft season. It is the best time of the year. It is the worst time of the year. We get our hopes up, we get them dashed, but this is the first one. We're going through the top 18 teams. Those are all set in stone. We know which teams are picking where. This is going to be a no trade mock in the future. We'll do trades. We'll do full first rounds. We'll do a full 2 round mock as well, just like we did last year. But I will pass the microphone off to you and have you kick things off with the Titans pick first overall.
Yep. Here we've got the Titans, recently fired GM. They've got a little GM vacancy right now. However, they did bring in a head coach that we thought was going to bring some life to Will Levis. That didn't happen. I think this is when you let that head coach make a decision. You let him go get a quarterback because the pieces are around Will Levis and he didn't succeed. And when we're looking at quarterbacks here, I'm going with Cam Ward, quarterback. And I think, where's Miami? The U. There's that little rumor, unsubstantiated, I believe, but it's a considerable rumor of Shedeur Sanders is only going to go to one place. There's not going to be any options. He's going to sit out, he's going to pull in Eli Manning, that stuff. And while I don't think that that's so true, I do still feel that with this class, Cam Ward could be the preferred Titans quarterback here. And, they could do a trade back because this isn't a huge, highly revered, this isn't Caleb Williams. So a trade back could occur and still get Cam Ward. But with a no trade mock, we are going with Cam Ward at number 1.
Yeah, even if it's not like a Shedeur is going to pull in Eli Manning, you want a guy that's bought in. And if Shedeur wants to go to the Giants, he's not going to be bought in wherever else he goes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at 2, we've got the Browns taking Travis Hunter. They still have the contract issues from Deshaun, and I don't think they take a risk on Shedeur and kind of put themselves into QB hell for the future. I think they take the best pick available, which is Travis Hunter, play him a little bit at receiver, a little bit at cornerback, see what he's better at, and then decide if you want to keep splitting snaps, if you want to just pigeonhole him into one thing. But this is the best way to build the team for the future and hope to get off the Deshaun contract and then be competitive after that, I think, for the Browns.
Yeah, the issues that the Browns have had in the quarterback room have been evident ever since they made that trade, and just kind of letting that go. You gotta cut it loose at some point, and he'll play for you this year, and then your next year, because I'm sure he's not going to play well. Then you have a high quality draft pick. You're going to go ahead and take a quarterback in that next one. But Travis Hunter, Heisman winner, seems like a no-brainer when we're taking best player available, not pigeonholing the quarterback position. And then we get into the Giants. This is Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. This is it. Look, we did it. He's teasing Giants all the way, and it really does seem like the most heavily noted 2 thing imaginable. And whether it be that the Giants want to trade up to get him, or if he does actually fall to them at 3, then, I think that this is the pick. They're going to go quarterback, and Shedeur is the one here.
Yeah, getting rid of Daniel Jones was the final nail in the coffin of we are taking a quarterback. And so you just kind of have to hope that the first 2 picks aren't quarterback if you're a Giants fan. But getting into the 4th pick, the Patriots, my Patriots, we have them taking Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State. There are a lot more issues than edge rusher on this team. There are a lot of O-line issues. I understand that we need tackles, but a top-tier edge rusher is not something that we can find in free agency. Capable tackles are something that are able to be found in free agency. So I'm going to hope that we can address the easier addressable issues in free agency and take the best talent at a position of need in the draft, which would be Abdul Carter.
Yeah, and just, that cap situation, y'all have so much of it. And with free agency, do you want to delegate the 25 to an elite edge rusher who might hit the market, or, 15 to 2 different really good guards or really good tackles? Because offensive line contracts just aren't as high as the edge. So that little bit of, you take the edge because it's more expensive at the top of the draft, and now it's a rookie deal you locked into, as opposed to a free agency big spend that you do. So then we move on to number 5, the Jaguars, who we have taking Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas, the offensive tackle. This is the move, that maybe some Patriots fans will be in the comments, shaking their fist at you. But trading away Cam Robinson midseason to the Vikings while they got some extra, draft capital, it weakened the offensive line. And this is that new revitalization. You're putting new talent onto the offensive line. They got, I think it was Anton Harrison last year. So you're targeting the other side of the offensive line and hoping to get a strong unit to keep T-Law healthy.
Yep. Then this is the first big shakeup. I think this is one that I don't see too often. We have the Raiders at 6 taking Ashton Genty out of Boise State. Now look, I get it. Running back is kind of a luxury pick if you're a team like the Raiders, but I think that team, especially firing Antonio Pierce, they need an identity. They need to create a what they are as a team, and they can't do that by taking a quarterback because there aren't that many good quarterbacks in this draft. So unless you want to take a shot on a Carson Beck or Jalen Milroe at 6th overall, which I don't think you want to do, the best option is taking a running back when it's this caliber of a player. They, like I said, need an offensive identity, and Ashton Genty can be an offensive identity. You can make your offense, hey, we have Ashton Genty. And if they do that, if they can successfully execute that, I think that can pave the way to take a project QB either in the second this year or in the later first next year and just kind of hope that he pans out, or go with the Titans route, right? And have a veteran who's okay at quarterback, but really you're just going to run the ball anyways, so it doesn't matter. And I think this is a very smart move for the Raiders to just be able to create an identity off of one single pick. But I understand that there's a lot of other needs, and maybe a lot of other people don't want to see this happen.
Yeah. Despite the prowess, the huge talk of Ashton Genty, there's going to be oh, well, it's a running back, he shouldn't go at 6. And it's happened before, and it'll, happen every now and then throughout the rest of history. Sometimes positional value is ignored. Sometimes it's for the right reasons. So with that said, on the Raiders pick, we're moving on to the Jets at pick number 7. We have them going Mason Graham, the tackle out of Michigan. And this feels kind of like a no-brainer because their defense has been struggling, and they have built up that offense. And while it is falling apart with Aaron Rodgers, and who knows what's going to be happening with Devontae Adams, because Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to be, more than likely not there. We'll see how that all falls and in the offseason. But on the defensive side, you still have a weaker unit than you have had in the past. And you want to go ahead, you have Will McDonald and you have Quinnen Williams, add another big guy in there, and that is going to be a threatening defensive line. Right now, it's kind of easier. You only have those 2 guys, and the other ones aren't that impactful, so you're able to focus on that. This would be the pick that really sets their defensive line apart from the rest of the league and really paves the way forward for them to return to having that strong defensive play.
Yep. And then at 8, we have the Panthers taking Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. With Mason Graham off the board, it's kind of just pivot to the next defensive blue chip prospect, and he's one of a couple left. So I think they take advantage of the position that they're in, try to pair him with J.C. Horn and create some lockdown cornerback play that can maybe let the defensive line and the front 7 be a little worse. Then next up at number 9, we have the Saints taking Mykel Williams, the edge rusher out of Georgia. The Saints' D-line has been awful. They've been atrocious, but, there's a chance to revitalize it a little bit, get a dominant edge rusher. And Mykel, he's a bit smaller at edge rusher, I believe, if he's the one I'm thinking of. But he's still a productive edge rusher and somebody who can play at multiple positions on the defense. So if they need to move him around either side of the edge or even drop back into coverage a couple times, I think he is athletic enough and good enough to be able to do that. So taking the best D-line player on the board that can do more than one thing is kind of a no-brainer here for the Saints.
Yep. You kind of hit it well. Like that's what you want to say about this. The D-line hasn't played well, and you have to, change that. You have to fix it in some way. So why not spend the first round pick on something that is surely going to do that with just the depths that you're at right now? You can only go up. So why not add someone that will start that trajectory upwards? Then moving on to the Bears, we have them taking Will Campbell, offensive tackle out of LSU. And whether he's projecting as an interior or an exterior guy, the Bears need offensive line help. Braxton Jones was out with injury this year, so that tackle side really looked worse. You could bring him in, and he could be that flex tackle in those moments where you need him, or you could have him start on the inside because they do have a guard departing. And you really just have to get some protection for Caleb Williams. He likes to hold the ball long, but the offensive line does not like to block for very long. So you got to give him some time in the pocket and maybe help him understand that he can feel safe within the pocket and speed up his clock to get the ball out of his hands quicker.
Yep. And then Will Campbell has kind of been like this bona fide top tackle. That's what he's talked up to be. But I've seen a lot of people like, you got to measure his arms, make sure his arms are long enough to play tackle in the NFL. So that's the only reason we have him projected as maybe an interior guy, is just because those measurements haven't come out yet. But anywho, moving on to pick 11, we've got the 49ers taking Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. This is earlier than I feel like he's mocked a lot of times because of injury. So he is currently, like mid last season, he went out for the year with a knee injury, but he could have been the top tackle in the class if he was not hurt. And the 49ers have a bit of an injury problem with the O-line not staying healthy, and that meaning that they are not good. So getting a guy who can back up or plug and play for Trent Williams or for any other side of that offensive line, which isn't as good as it once was, is kind of a good idea here for the 49ers with some of the other talent that has already left the board.
Yeah, it's a good little insurance policy to take for the offensive line that you have. And it also helps you get a little cheaper there, where you can let some things expire. You can let some contracts expire and not extend them in a few years. So then we've got the Cowboys. This is an interesting one because we don't like Jerry Jones, so we don't want to think that he's ever going to make the correct decision ever. We have them going with Ted McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. This isn't their biggest need, but it certainly feels like it in a way. They were able to kind of find a rushing identity towards the end of the year. So, while a lot of people have Genty going here, it also could be that they're just going to rock with what they have in Dowdle. And they really have CD and no one else. They've got some production from the no one else, but you'd like some production from like a big name wide receiver too that can really be dominant. And right now they're just not close to having a dominant number two there. So why not go ahead and lock up one for the rest of someone's rookie deal, especially while you're paying Dak an expensive contract. You want him to have weapons, so you're actually getting usage out of that money you're spending on him.
Yeah, I feel like Tet to the Cowboys is like, he'll be what T is to the Bengals. Like it gives the same vibes. Just a big dominant guy that can really nicely pair with a more shifty threat like CD, like Jamar. Obviously not the same player. I think Jamar is a lot better than CeeDee Lamb. But anywho, we're getting into semantics here. At 13, we have the Dolphins taking Luther Burden, the third wide receiver out of Mizzou. Now, is Tyreek there? Is Tyreek not? We really don't know. So we planned up this mock and we scripted this up. And then this morning, right before recording, Tyreek goes, "Yeah, I talked to the owner. We're chill." And so we really don't know what's going to happen. But it's still fun to imagine that he might not want to be in Miami. So if that happens, and even if it doesn't, he's 31. He's not going to be there forever. So locking up a good player like Burden is going to be a good way to make sure that your wide receiver room doesn't take a huge step back. And the other thing is there has been a lot of talk of their wide receiver room being very shallow. It's basically Tyreek and Waddle and nobody else. And they tried to fix that with Malik Washington last year, and that didn't really work too well. And Devon Achane, I think, led the team in receptions. Like, it's not a sustainable structure. So taking another guy that can step in and be a big impact on the offense, even if Tyreek stays, I think is a good move for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think you really said it all with Luther Burden. You know, it's that will he, won't he, and we're going ahead and projecting one way or the other because we don't know, and draft is months from now, so we're kind of just shooting our darts where we can. Then we move on to the Colts pick at number 14. We have them going Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. This was a need that we very much heavily leaned into last year with their team. Their secondary needs to improve. They ended up going Liatu Latu. They got a great core front seven now. With, you know, they could have some linebacker play improve, but the real weakness of that defense is the DBs. So getting Malachi Starks, getting this very versatile safety box, just all around DB, like he will do it all for you. You go ahead and you get aneurysm.
Morning to you, buddy.
3, 2. You go ahead and you pick that up here, and you're good to go. You have added such a crucial piece to that defense that it'll really be a good piece moving forward for that, you know, secondary to build itself up around him. Then on to pick 15 with the Falcons, we have them taking Nick Scorton, edge out of Texas A&M. Now, all last year, before they went haywire and picked the quarterback, we were very much in the whole pass rush argument. They need to take a pass rusher, Dallas Turner all the way. That didn't happen, and now here we are a year later, and they are still bottom of the barrel in pass rush. They tried to get a little Band-Aid with Matt Judon going in, and you know, yeah, it's a nice little Band-Aid, but it doesn't work when you're bleeding out from a, you know, a whole, imagine a Pringles can going through your chest. That's what they've been dealing with on the pass rush. It's time you actually add some young talent, not a, you know, older veteran who you're just kind of going to throw a little trade with and try to hope that heals you. It's not going to. You need a full med kit.
Go to the hospital, please. Yeah. We were talking a lot about how the Falcons needed pass rush and not at all about how they needed quarterback. And,
yeah,
you know, they needed both, evidently. But on to pick 16, we have the Cardinals taking James Pierce Jr., edge rusher out of Tennessee. After drafting Darius Robinson last year, they still need to continue to build the trenches and improve a bottom 5 pass rush. Pairing a top guy like James Pierce with a guy that has shown promise like Darius Robinson could be pretty cost effective, seeing as though edges are at a premium. We talked about that earlier with Abdul Carter. And James Pierce, kind of best defensive pick available here, fills a hole that the Cardinals need to have filled, and hopefully revitalizes that defense. We've had them taking defense quite a bit because of Jonathan Gannon and his defensive mind, and we really want him to get a defensive prospect at the top of the draft, because I feel like if you're a defensive-minded coach, that's what you want, and they just haven't been doing that. So kind of a nice thing to do for him, and that's what we hope they do here.
Yeah. Last season, you know, they did go very heavy on defense throughout the draft, but not near the top of the draft. You added a lot of DBs late, and this is, you know, the piece that could very much be a massive improvement to the defense, because all of the additions you made last year through the draft, while they have some playing well, they're not improving your defense enough to, you know, make it out of this contending area where, yeah, you did play very well. You did have a very good record. That's why you're towards the end of this final, or the first 18 that are locked in, but you need to improve there. This pick improves you. Then we move on to the Bengals at pick 17. We're going Kenneth Grant, D-tackle out of Michigan here. And the Bengals, I mean, they had an MVP caliber year from Joe Burrow, and they have nothing to show for it because of the defensive play. And they fired their defensive coordinator, so you can put some blame on that, but you also have to consider that they had a pretty weak defensive line at stopping the run. So when you're relying on other players other than the defensive line to stop the run, you know, it gets a little muddied there. They're going to get more yards. They're going to get further past the line of scrimmage before anyone touches them. And then you had the fact that DJ Reader, your big body in the defensive front, went ahead and went to the Lions. This replaces him. You get a ginormous body to put on the D-line. This is going to stop runs, and you get a huge guy for the middle of the defense that is going to, you know, persuade these teams to not just run straight up the middle and gash you that way.
Yep. And then at pick 18, the final pick of this mock draft, we have the Seahawks doing something we had them doing a lot last year, and that is fixing their interior offensive line, taking Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama. I think the more realistic option is see which tackles project as guards and take that, because I feel like tackles are always projected higher than guards and just a higher talent. So if you can get a tackle that you feel can reliably shift inwards, maybe you have some of that use for them in on the interior and the exterior. It's kind of how we had Talise Fuaga going to them a couple times last year, and a couple different guys where we were like, look, if you need tackle play, these guys have experience there, but ultimately they project better as guards, which is what you need anyways. So that's probably the more realistic option. But again, as we don't have those measurements, we can't accurately predict who is going to shift inside and who's going to stay out. So giving them the best guard in the class in Tyler Booker is our best option here.
Yeah, as much as you can say, like, oh, this is a reach, it's because of the positional value. But the positional value to the Seahawks should be through the roof, because we saw what happened all year long after they didn't target this position. And now it's kind of a very impending doom about the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker should be your main guy going haywire, and he's not, and it's because of the interior of the offensive line. And, with the argument of you could take the tackle that projects as guard, which, we don't know, but I would say that's probably a more likely situation than going the pure guard, best here. But that it takes time. We need to know measurements before we are able to say that. But, with what we've seen from the tackle position with injuries this season and bad play behind that, it definitely puts some focus on you need to get a versatile offensive lineman. But primarily, you need that guard to start. You need a starting guard. You don't need the depth at tackle if you don't have someone at your guard position. So that's our final pick for this 18-team mock right before the playoffs kick off. Got anything to leave these people with?
Yeah, if you are a fan of any of these top 18 teams, please, please, please let us know if we have misjudged your team's needs. We are always taking in additional information and using that for our future mocks. In fact, the knowledge that the Seahawks really needed interior offensive line came from our comment section last year on our first mock. So please let us know. And if you're a fan of any of the playoff teams, let us know their needs as well, so that when we do our full mock post Super Bowl, then we can use those needs as well. So we are always taking in information. We always appreciate any input that you can give us. So please, please, please do that. And if you want to stick around for some of our off-season content, we got a lot of stuff planned. Just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, drop a like if you enjoyed this, and we'll catch you next time. Deuces.
Deuces.